At the end of yesterday's video, I talked about a mark that God puts on the heart, circumcision of the heart, as it's called in both the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 30, and in the New Testament, for instance, Romans 2:29. This sign or seal, as I mentioned yesterday, is the mark that God puts on believers today. Our mark is not external like it was for Abraham. Our mark is internal. But just because the mark cannot be seen with our eyes today, it does not mean that it cannot be observed, or at least that it should not be observed. As I mentioned in Monday's video, God is more concerned about who we are than what we do. But who I am and who you are should impact what we do. And our lives are influenced by our faith. That was true for Abraham. That was true for Paul, and it should be true for us as well. So the seal today, for those who have placed their faith in Jesus, as per Paul in Ephesians chapter 1, verses 13 through 14, is the Holy Spirit. And when the Spirit begins to work in us, that is, when He begins circumcising our heart, our lives begin to change. These changes become manifest as His fruit becomes evident in our lives. That fruit is love, and joy, and peace, and patience, and kindness, and goodness, and faithfulness, and gentleness, and self-control. Those 9 parts, those 9 characteristics that we find in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, that is the fruit of the Spirit. That is the fruit that He wants to make evident in us. Now, please understand, we are sinful creatures because of Adam. But we have the opportunity to let the Spirit guide us because of Jesus. So, we are not perfect. We will never become perfect in living out those 9 characteristics, that part of the Spirit, that fruit of the Spirit that He so desperately wants us to embrace. But I have a test to help you know if your heart has been circumcised, or at least if the Spirit is working in your heart to circumcise it. That is, if you have been marked by God, if you have been sealed by His Spirit. Now, what I'm going to say to you has nothing to do with what you do. And yet it has everything to do with how you live. And you might say, well, Andy, isn't that contradictory? No. Because if it's what we do, then we can do something, but how we live is representative, really, of who we are. And that's the case I've been making this week. So are you ready? The answer lies in who you are. So are you ready for the question? Here's the question. Here's the test to know if your heart has been or is being circumcised. Are you revealing more of the fruit of the Holy Spirit in your life? That is, are you becoming more loving, more joyful, more peaceful, more patient? Are you becoming more kind? Are you sharing more of God's goodness? Are you experiencing more of God's goodness even? Are you becoming more faithful to the things of God and not the things of the world? Are you more gentle now than you were in the past? Do you exercise more self-control? Again, I'm not saying you're perfect in any of these areas, but a heart that is circumcised by God and is sealed by the Spirit should begin to look more like the Spirit. And the Spirit's fruit is shown to us, again, as these 9 characteristics as revealed in Galatians 5, 22 and 23. So if you are not becoming more like the Spirit, take time to ask. Ask yourself, ask God, but start with asking and then begin to yield to God in that. Now the word yield is something that we don't like in our world today. We don't like to submit to anything. We want to be in control, but the whole point of circumcision, the whole idea of circumcision and the promise and the faith of Abraham, etc., is to show that we are not in control. God is in control, and our responsibility is to trust Him, and that is really what faith is. So if you are becoming more like God because the fruit of the Spirit is becoming more evident in your life, You should be different now than you were in the past. And honestly, the longer that you have given your life over to Christ, the longer that we might say that you have called yourself a Christian, the longer it has been since you were born again, the more different you should be. Now, we can't draw a straight line for righteous living. There are so many ups and downs because our pride, our selfishness, our flesh, as Paul calls it, gets in the way. But the change should be evident. We are not doing more. We are not striving to do more. We're not even trying to do something better. We simply are better when our heart has been circumcised. Why? Because we are God's. So like Abraham, if we are God's, we are signed and sealed. As Ephesians 1:13 and 14 says, that we are sealed for the day of redemption. That is, that we have been redeemed, which means one day we will be delivered. We are signed, sealed, and delivered. And to that, I say to God, I'm yours. I hope you'll join me. I hope you can join me in saying I'm yours as well.